who better than me?
Welcome back to another episode of The Hardcore Casual with your boy, Bass the Kid. As always, please like and subscribe, share the video with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an enemy, an associate, whoever. I appreciate all the views. I appreciate all the comments. I'm over 200 subscribers at the moment, so please, let's see if we can keep getting that number rising. Sharing this voice, sharing this opinion with the masses. There was a few things to talk about, but I think I'm just going to stick to two particular things today, as there's one I want to talk a little bit about, and sometimes, as you know, I can ramble on a bit. So without further ado, let's get into the first one. So earlier on this week, you had Floyd Mayweather basically trying to explain away why he had his press conference for his exhibition fight on top of the the Burj Al Arab, the big helipad up in the UAE, or was it Dubai, one or the other, you know. Anyway, so, and he basically said, well, Anderson Silva and everyone else, that was the only day that they were able to do it. He initially didn't want to clash, but you know, they paid him $1 million. He's like, well, I'm not gonna not show up for $1 million to do the press conference or announcement or whatever it was. Look, it's no secret that Floyd Mayweather as a promoter is absolute trash. Like, let's be real, one of the greatest fighters that's ever lived in terms of, you know, achievements and boxing skills, dedication to the craft and everything, but he's a trash promoter. That being said, it's not just him. So I mean, it's not like this behavior is totally synonymous with Floyd. He's just like the most egregious with it, I'd probably say. Look, he's, in one sense, it's like you kind of get some attention to your stable because their names are attached to you, but it's also him attaching his name to them. A lot of his opponents, like, people don't really check it. Like, a lot of the people that he fought them because they had huge fan bases that was drawing into the fight as well. When it was just his star power alone selling the fight, you know, his pay-per-views didn't do the same kind of numbers. Like, if you compare Andre Berto to, say, Canelo Alvarez, you understand the dynamic, or a Marquez, you know, that it makes sense as to, okay, why there's certain opponents that he would go for. Even the whole Logan Paul thing, I mean, we don't know how much that truly sold because official numbers never came out, but huge star, huge personality going against Floyd. When he went to Japan and fought Tenshin Nasukawa, there again, it's a big personality on that side of the world. It's not just Floyd's name and star power, and I feel like he realizes that in order for him to stay relevant, which is really all he wants, he doesn't want to be forgotten. He's a person, I guess, that feels that when the lights when the lights switch off, people forget the greatness that maybe was you in your career or the moves you made. And it's weird because if you look at his achievements money wise, I mean, yeah, he could probably say he's the highest grossing boxer ever. That might be a claim. I've never fact checked it, so I can't comment specifically on that, but it's clear that for him, you've got someone like Sugar Ray Robinson, who is, you know, sort of known, you know, throughout the annals of history and within the boxing community and, you know, the wider community as Mr. Pound for Pound, like the reason the whole pound for pound argument has ever been brought up in any conversation. You've got someone like Jack Johnson, you know, revolutionary in what he basically did as, like, you know, sort of the first black champion, and the way he went about things in America and, you know, sort of trying to break down the hierarchy. You've got Muhammad Ali, who's been quoted as the greatest man to ever box. Not necessarily the greatest boxer, but the greatest man to ever box. The stuff that he did for the civil rights movements and you know, sort of black empowerment back in the 60s and 70s. So you've got all of these people with their legacies. And then you've got Floyd, whose only legacy at this point is money. And I think he wants to be seen in the same light as those others, but realizes that maybe he never will be, or maybe he can't be because he's still too current. So the only thing he can do is make his legacy about money and how much money he gets, how much money he makes, and all of these quote unquote smart investments he keeps making. But I don't feel like if you make all of these smart investments, you get in the ring against a former sparring partner in, you know, Middle East to, you know, for what, $5 million. That doesn't seem like a something a person with smart investments would do. You leverage your money into making more money. If all of these smart investments, he should never have to step in a ring for an exhibition or anything otherwise again. Now, if you're saying that he just wants to do it for the love of doing it, okay, but if that was the case, then you wouldn't be doing it for who's paying the most money at the most time. Like, you would literally just do it for the sake of the love, because your money is coming from everywhere else. When people have a love and a passion for golf, it's not about, well, who's paying me to play this, or to, you know, to shoot this golf game with them. That their money's coming from other things. This is just a pastime now. So it's clear that this is because money is an issue in some way, shape or form. Whether he's broke, as some people claim, no idea. And it's not my business. I don't particularly care. But when it comes to doing things like this at the detriment to your fighters, it's a shame. It's a real shame. And maybe one of the only reasons he's doing it is because, you know, like, Tank's on it's the last fight of his contract. I mean, he's done it before, so it can't just be that. But maybe it's like, okay, we'll take some shine away from him because no one in my stable is going to outshine me. He keeps saying that he wanted people in his team to surpass him, but then doesn't ever give anyone the platform to do so. It's a bit weird. You know, Tank's what, 27, turning 28, and like, he's fighting guys the sake of Rolly Romero. And who was the one before that? I remember the guy's name yesterday. It's totally gone out of my head. I might just leave a link to it. But yeah, I mean, ultimately you've got Tank fighting in fights that he should have been having at the age of 21, 22. Floyd wasn't fighting these level of opponents, you know, back when he was sort of 27, 28. He was in there with the killers. He was making his legacy at that point. So moving Tank the way he's moving him, it either means that he doesn't believe in the hype truly, or he doesn't have the money to make the right fights, or he just doesn't want to be quote unquote upstaged by someone else within the team. I mean, who knows? Either way, like, look, I think it was in poor taste that he'd done it. Whether they paid him the $1 million to do it or not, it's like, you don't really undercut your fighters like that. But like I said, when all ex-fighters that become promoters all seem to have that little bit of something about them trying to sort of take the limelight off of their stars. I mean, look, Oscar De La Hoya does the exact same thing. Maybe not, like I said, as egregiously as Floyd, but he does it in other ways. He still wants the limelight. He still wants to be in there. That's why he was trying to work with Triller to have comeback fights, because he wants to get some of that shine that he used to get. So I get it to a degree, but it's not something I can co-sign. Anyway, let me get off of that and let me get into my main point before I end this video. So yesterday we had the media call between Tyson Fury and Dillian Whyte for the fight that's happening next week. Quick plug, if you're in Lewisham in South London or feel like traveling down, come down to the Old Tiger's Head, where there is a live watch along happening with myself and Tony, the pugilist boy, for the Undefeated podcast. I'll leave a link to tickets in the description below, and you can get your tickets from there if you haven't already purchased them. But yeah, so within this media day, you had sort of the usual suspects asking questions of Tyson Fury. He was being his usual self. He said that St. George's Day should now be called St. Tyson's Day at the end of the event and everything. 94,000 in attendance. I mean, that's yeah, We've got a week to find out how legit that claim is. However, the most interesting part of this came when Dillian Whyte got on the call, because no one really asked Dillian anything about his preparation initially. It was all about why the silence had happened, why he didn't speak, why he didn't engage, why he didn't come to press conference. So he basically said, and I remember because Dan Raphael started it off, and he was basically saying, well, look, you've been in the game for God knows how long. You know that sometimes like a piece of paper isn't the be all and end all. Like sometimes it's the print isn't worth the paper it's written on, and there's other things that go on in the background, and there's other agreements, or you sign an agreement to a further agreement terms and sheet that happens down the line, or this is a preliminary talks, but there's other things that need to be ironed out in the paperwork and whatnot, and things just weren't being done correctly. Essentially I wasn't being treated in the manner I should. Everyone's talking and trying to mug me off like this is just the Tyson Fury show, I should be happy to be a part of it. When he's like, well, no, this fight is only selling out Wembley because it's me and Tyson Fury. If it was Tyson by himself, it wouldn't do that. He mentioned every single one of the Wilder fights, none of them were sold out, and that is a fact. That is factual. Like there's footage out on the internet which you can find. There's receipts. Like no arena was ever at full max capacity for any of those fights. And he didn't allude to this, but I've said previously, and I've said, and other people have said before, if he was fighting a Robert Helenius or like Ajit Caballero or something like that, the fight would be taking place at like Royal Albert Hall or somewhere along there, because Frank Warren even said when they was going to do the homecoming for Tyson in the previous time that those were the kind of venues they was looking at, or they was going to go to America and do like a 8,000 seater stadium or whatever. No, it's 94,000 because he's fighting Dillian Whyte. Dillian also alluded to the fact, well, look, I've been on pay-per-view, I've done 7 pay-per-view events like back to back, and I've always treated my opponents correctly, so when it comes to this and you want to sort of play games and mess about, I'm going to do the only thing I can do, which is control my actions, because I can't control anything else. So, and that's what he did. He didn't speak, didn't say nothing, didn't help them, to the point where they're livid, thinking that they're not going to be able to make back the money they invested. And ultimately, I'm sure, I have no proof of this, but I'm sure something has been done behind the scenes in some way to say, look, okay, these are the kind of things you've asked for. We can accommodate this and this. We can't do this and that, but is that okay for you to help in the last couple of weeks of the promotion for this fight? I saw a video from Hatman a few days ago where he basically kind of said the same thing, where like Frank Warren realistically should have just said, all right, you know what, Dillian, look, I did laugh at you and I made fun when you got beat by Povetkin and thought you lost the mandatory and everything, but look, that's old news. It was a rivalry between promotions. You're promotionally free, so if I can offer you this and this, will you help me maybe bring 1 or 2 of your fighters and put them on the card as well, just to sort of help with the undercard? Can we agree that you will do this promotional agreement and rare and help promote the fight that way? If I can offer you a small percentage of the pay-per-view as well, to sort of recognize your particular importance to the fact of it being such a big event, like, is that something we can agree on? Or even, if when this fight's over, is it possible we can maybe look at options for your next fight, or something like that? Like, all of these are things that he could have done as a promoter to sweeten this deal, because ultimately, if you put $41 million allegedly, well, okay, I can't even say it. Okay, officially, you put $41 million into this fund for a fight, you need to make sure that you at least break even or maximize that money to revenue. And I don't know if he was thinking that, or if he was just thinking, oh, I got one up on Eddie Hearn, it's all about Tyson, like, forget everyone else, this is, I'm gonna do the best I can do for Tyson. and ultimately he ended up shooting himself in the foot for being so headstrong. And Frank Warren's had a history of that. You know, he's very quick to, he'll bring up and he'll praise someone, but as soon as they leave or as soon as something happens, or he'll slag them off, or he'll slag them off and then try and be their best friend once their contract's up and he thinks like he might have a chance to, you know, like someone like, and I know people are gonna say, oh, Matchroom, this and that. Look, someone like Eddie Hearn, the one thing you can say about Eddie, unless you've really, really like screwed him over, he never really slates you like that badly in public. He might do behind the scenes, but he will never like just totally like lambast you and play you down like you're some chump, or like he's always fairly respectful for anyone that has left him. He doesn't sign people to long-term deals a lot of the time. A lot of it's fight by fight. He feels that's the best plan, except for obviously like his major stars. And you know, he'll keep it moving. You know, Devin Haney's gone to Top Rank for 2-3 fights, and he's like, look, it was the right thing for him to do. I couldn't get him that fight because the money wasn't there, so we're gonna do it this way. Now if Haney decides to stay over there past the 2 or 3 fights, maybe he might change his tune, and then maybe I might have to make a correctional video like 2 years down the line saying, okay, Eddie's not how I thought he was. But you know, he always seems to be quite fair with people leaving. He said the same thing about Andre. You know, his contract's up, probably won't be renewed because there's not much I can do for him at this point. But yeah, getting back to Dillian, as I said, I did like to have a little bit of a ramble sometimes, so that's why there's only 2 segments on this one. Yeah, he also, you know, they spoke about the sparring stories, and I like that he just alluded to, well, you know, ask Tyson, like ask him about the stories. He's supposed to be this honest stand-up guy, you know, ask him what happened. While you're at it, ask him about the 7 million that he said he was donating to charity, because we still ain't heard which charity it was. No one sold us anything. Like, you know, stand-up guy, ask him. Like all these little things, and Dillian came out with a you know, gem after gem without properly going in and, you know, just battering and sounding like a whiny, you know, sort of like a whiny child. He actually was very measured, and it's almost like he thought about what points to bring up to address the situation without getting too much into it. And if there's a press conference next week, I've got a feeling that press conference is going to be fireworks in terms of things that were said or things that maybe weren't said on this time. But no, overall, I thoroughly enjoyed like his performance. You know, he also spoke a little bit about his background. Obviously that helps on the American side, because in the UK we know about that, but you know, over there they might not know. He didn't want to allude too much to it because he doesn't really use it as much of an excuse, but you know, that might make people want to delve in and find out what was he talking about. So yeah, I feel like it was a very good performance. It was a very good first, you know, sort of first appearance, and it's definitely, if you have a scorecard at this point, it almost feels like it's 2-0 Dillian, purely because everyone was so riled up and perturbed and miffed by him not being at the announcement press conference, and say, oh, but then say, oh, well, Tyson can handle it, and it was boring, it was dull. Even today, Tyson didn't really say much yesterday about anything. It wasn't anything interesting, and Dillian just came with the gems, and that's what people are talking about, you know, now, up until now. So yeah. And like I said before, when he made the point about, look, I've been in 7 pay-per-views back to back, like, and I'm treating people all right. So you have to then say, well, if he's been in 7 different pay-per-views over here, it can't just be the Tyson Fury show. Like, you can't be dense to believe that his marquee value is not accounted for in whatever numbers this fight does. If the fight does end up doing the 1.5 to 2 million pay-per-view buys that, you know, they were projecting for BT Sport or whatever, Dillian's a good chunk of that. At least 700 of that was gonna have to have come from him. If you look at their numbers comparatively, I'm pretty sure that it could be 2 or even 3 to 1 in terms of the amount of pay-per-view buys between the two of them. Now, granted, you will say, well, Fury's only been in 5 pay-per-views. I think that Tom Schwartz was a pay-per-view. Otto Wallin was a pay-per-view. The 3 Fury fights and the Klitsch. Okay, 6. So he's had his 6 pay-per-views, and then Dillion's had his 7. I'm pretty sure Dillion is ahead in UK pay-per-views. Okay, you can say that 5 of Tyson's were in the States, but that's not Dillion's fault. Dillion was selling out consistently in the UK, sold out arenas like several times in the UK, did 300 to 600k pay-per-views like consistently for the last 7 shows. So I mean, yeah, with that, it's clear that it's not just a Tyson Fury show, and I'm glad that he alluded to, you know, that being one of the things that needed to be ironed out. And I guess, like I said, I think there's money been put behind the scenes to say, all right, maybe we didn't deal with you correctly, so we're gonna make sure you got X, Y, and Z if you just, you know, play nice for the last couple of weeks. And I'm pretty sure that'll be in writing as well. But like I said, it's all speculation. It's fun to speculate sometimes, but yeah, overall it was a good one. So I'm just waiting for some of the interviews to come out from Dillion now, if he does any. I want a nice long one with Coogan for IFL, maybe you know, something for Boxing Social. I don't know if he'll do seconds out, because, you know, Danny Flexon is very I'll save that for another time. But yeah, all right, well, for now, let me leave this one, and I'll be back with basis picks either later on today or first thing in the morning, because I'm waiting for the Errol Spence and Dennis Ugas weigh-in to do the final picks on that side. But I've got my idea for the Matchroom The Zone card. With that being said, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the thoughts and everything else. Share the video, as I did say. I'm gonna leave the link for the watch along in the chat below. And yeah, again, thanks for watching. For now, Hardcore Casual out.